Let's look at these JAMB fast questions. Biology 2018 question. The excretory organ in insects is the A. Kidney, B. Malpian tubule, C. Phlegm cell, D. Nephridium. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, first of all, we need to know about the types of excretory systems for the various organisms. And as a matter of reference, I'm going to write types of excretory systems for various organisms. So now I'm going to take out the first one. The first major type of excretory system is what we call the contractile vacuole. The contractile vacuoles, and the type of organism that use this is amoeba. Now I'm going to look at the second type of excretory system, which is one of the options up, and that is the phlegm cell. And this phlegm cell is used by organisms, or the organism known as flatworm. Now I'm going to look at another group of excretory systems known as Malpian tubules. Malpian tubules. And this Malpian tubule is used by insects. And finally, I'm going to look at another excretory system or organ known as kidney. And this kidney is used by human beings, mammals, human beings. And also, we also have another excretory system that I have to mention before I'm done, and that is nephridium, or you call it nephridia, and it is used by earthworms. Earthworms. So, for clarity, this is earthworms. So now we have the excretory organs. These are the excretory organs, and these are the organisms that use them. So from this list, you can simply see that the excretory organ for insects is Malpian tubule, option number B, because you can see it here. Malpian tubule is used by insects. So Malpian tubule is the excretory organ for insects. Phlegm cell is the excretory organ for flatworm. Nephridium is the excretory organ for earthworm. And kidney is the excretory organ for human. That is what me and you use as our excretory organ. So the right option for the answer is Malpian tubule, which is the excretory organ for insects. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past question, Biology 2018, question number 2. Cold-blooded animals are referred to as A. Poikilothermic, B. Homothermic, C. Polythermic, D. Homeostatic. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, we need to define the following terms as stated in the options. So number one, let's look at what the term poikilothermic means. Now, poikilothermic is referred to as the quality or state of being cold-blooded. So that is what poikilothermic is, and it is usually found in animals such as reptiles and amphibians. So you find out that the reptiles and the amphibians are poikilothermic animals, where their temperatures vary with the changes in temperature of the surrounding. So we have their temperature varying with the temperature or the changes in the surroundings. This is due to absence of mechanisms such as presence of fur or hair, as in other animals. So cold-blooded animals are actually poikilothermic. So with that, we see that option A is already the answer to this problem. So the word cold-blooded has a lot of things to do with poikilothermic. So that is another word for cold-blooded, poikilothermic. And the animals that are referred to as being cold-blooded or poikilothermic are the reptiles and the amphibians. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 3. Long neck in giraffe is used to illustrate the theory of A, use and disuse, B, origin of species, 3C, origin of life, D, natural selection. Now, for us to appreciate this, let's look at what the theory of use and disuse states. Let's look at this very important theory known as the theory of use and disuse. This theory was postulated by JAMB, and the theory is of the opinion that this theory states that when a body part is used constantly, when a body part is used constantly, it becomes more developed. When a body part is used constantly, it becomes more developed and efficient. So when you continue to use a part of a body or a body part constantly every time, that very part is going to become more developed and more efficient, while those that are not used become less efficient, while those that are not used, while those body parts that are not used becomes less efficient. You see that? And small, they become both less efficient and small, but the part that you use become more developed and more efficient. So these developed traits are then passed on to the organism. So when these developed traits and efficiency are then passed on to their offspring. That's the organism's offspring. So this was actually the theory that the postulant used the giraffe as an example, stating that ancestors of giraffe had short neck. However, because they had to stretch their necks to reach for leaves on trees, the necks got longer, and this was passed to their offsprings as a trait. So you can see this is actually why the giraffes have long neck, because their ancestors, like this is a giraffe, and this giraffe is reaching for leaves on trees. These are leaves on trees because for them to survive they have to eat. So because the ancestor of the giraffe, this is the ancestor of this giraffe, they continue to stretch their neck in order to get these leaves. So that now made the neck of giraffes to be very long. And that is why when you see a giraffe, you find out that the neck is very long. This is the long neck of the giraffe, the offspring. Whereas the ancestor has a short neck, but they continue to stretch their neck in order for them to feed on leaves that are up here on the trees. So after some time, their neck become well developed and very efficient because they are being constantly used. So the trait of this long neck is then passed to the offspring, and that's why we have the giraffes to have long neck. So the answer to this is option A, use and disuse. The long neck in giraffe is used to illustrate the theory of use and disuse, because constant using of a particular body part makes it to be very well developed and more efficient. And that is how we come about this. And that is why option A is the answer. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 4. At fertilization, A, one chromosome from the male joins another from the female. B, one gene from the male combines with another from the female. C, the male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus. D, one set of chromosome combines with another set from the female. So what actually happens during fertilization? We all know that fertilization is what happens when there is this fusion of the nucleus from the male with that of the female. But this fertilization, on the surface, that is what it is. But in details, we know that fertilization is what occurs when there is fusion of chromosomes into haploid gametes. So fertilization is actually what occurs when there is fusion of chromosomes into haploid gametes, talking about the sperm cell and the egg from the female. So we're talking about the male and female gametes. So when there is the fusion of these to produce a diploid, that is 2N zygotes. So whenever you have the production of zygotes by the fusion of chromosomes into haploid gametes, that is the gamete from the male and the female, to form a diploid zygote, we have what we call fertilization. That is what fertilization is all about. Well, on the surface, you can see that fertilization is the fusion of the male nucleus and the female nucleus. So what part of this nucleus are actually fusing? It is actually the chromosomes of the two haploid gametes from the male and female to produce a diploid zygote. So that is what happens. Now, so the option that is very close to this is C. Why? Because if you look at this, you also have chromosome. But here we're talking about one chromosome. One chromosome is not what does the fusion. So it cannot be one. This alone takes this out. Now for the second one gene from the male. When you're talking about gene, you're talking about hereditary. It's not actually reproduction as we are supposed to do in fertilization. Now this deal says one set of chromosome combines with another set from female. One set of chromosome from where? Is it from male or female? So you can see that this statement is not complete. So D cannot be the answer, B cannot be, A cannot be. But option number C is the answer to the problem. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 5 for JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. Which of the following is an organ? A. Guard cell. B. Liver. C. Xylem bundle. D. Blood. Now, in order for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, we need to know the various levels of specialization or various levels of organization of the cell or organisms. Levels of organization. And in these levels of organization, we have the smallest is the cell. And when you have a group of cells coming together, they form what we call tissue. And if you have a group of tissue performing the same function coming together, they form what we call organ. Then if you have a group of organs coming together that perform similar or coming together to achieve something, we call it system. So system is the highest level of organization, whereas cell is the lowest level of organization. So you can see that the things you see in our body or in the body of organisms, they can fall under cell, tissue, organ, or system. When you're talking about system, you're talking about things like the circulatory system, where you have plenty of organs coming together to make it work. You have things like excretory system, plenty of organs coming together, reproductory system, plenty of organs coming together, plenty other system, transport system. I think transport is all about the circulatory system as well. Now, when you're talking about organ, you're talking about things like the liver. You know what the liver does in the body. Talking about things like the kidney. That's the excretory organ from mammals. Now, when you're talking about cells, you're talking about the red blood cells, the white blood cells. That's what we talk about here. But when you talk about tissue, you talk about blood cells coming together to form a tissue. So for cells, you can also have white blood cells. Then you talk about the xylem tissues in plants. So these are the various classification of the levels of organization. So from this, you can easily see that a liver is an organ. So that makes option B the right answer. Guard cell, we're talking about cells. Xylem, we're talking about tissue. Blood cells, like the white blood cell, red blood cell, they are cells. So the right option for the answer is B. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. Question number 6. What is the function of trichocysts in paramecium? A. Movement. B. Defense. C. excretion. D, reproduction. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, we need to know what a paramecium is. Paramecium is that organism that has the shape. That is the shape of a paramecium. So, on the body of the paramecium, we have things like this. And these are called cilia. And this cilia is used for movement. Cilia is used for movement and getting food. Both movement and getting food to the paramecium. Now, we also have what we call the anal pores. And this anal pore is used for excretion. Anal pore is used for excretion. Then inside here we have what we call the micronucleus, and the bigger ones known as macronucleus. The micronucleus is used for reproduction through a process known as meiosis, as is division. So the part that is used for reproduction is micronucleus. Now, we also have what we call a spindle-like body. We also have spindle-like body inside called trichosis. And this trichosis are actually spindle-like bodies filled with dense refractive fluid containing swelled substances. And they are actually used for defense. The trichocysts are used for defense. So those are the parts of the paramecium. Also important to note in the paramecium is what we call the contractile vacuole. The contractile vacuole. This is also used for excretion, but it's actually for excreting excess water. Use it to remove excess water. So from this, you can see that the answer is B. The trichocyst is actually for defense. That is what the trichocyst does. Trichocyst, this is the trichocyst. It is used for defense, and that makes B the answer. For movement, it's used the cilia for excretion, the anal pore, and the contractile vacuole for reproduction, the micronucleus. So B is the right answer, and this is the diagram of a paramecium. It's an eukaryote. So this is diagram showing the various parts and function. These are the parts of the function. Very important to note is also this boundary is known as the pellicle. This pellicle is what actually covers the body and gives it its shape. So pellicle gives the paramecium its shape. Yes, so B is the answer because trichosis is actually used for defense. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past questions, biology 2018. Question number 7. An increase in air pressure in the lungs is due to the A. Increase in the volume of the thoracic cavity, B. Upward movement of the rib, C. Relaxation of the diaphragm, the contraction of the intercostal muscles. Now, for us to be able to understand this question and appreciate it very well, we need to know the mechanism of breathing. We need to understand the mechanism of breathing, which is actually what is happening for us to have all these. And this is the mechanism of breathing in human beings, in man, and many other mammals. And basically, it involves inhalation and exhalation. That's what breathing is all about in human being. Inhalation and exhalation. That's breathing in and breathing out of air. Inhalation means breathing in, exhalation means breathing out. Now, we have that during inhalation, what actually happens during inhalation? During inhalation, air is taken into the lungs. That's what happens during inhalation. Air is taken into the lungs. Now, when the air is taken in, when this air is taken in, the lungs intercostal, the lungs intercostal muscles contract. That's what happens. The lungs intercostal muscles contract. You understand? So whenever there is inhalation, there is contraction of the lungs intercostal muscle. This is option D. That's what happens when there is inhalation. But we are not stopping there. We need to understand the full thing that happens during inhalation. So it contracts, the lungs contracts, and the chest cavity increases. And the chest cavity, which is also the thoracic cavity, increases. So this also happens when there is inhalation of air. Now, there is also an increase in air pressure of the lungs. There is also increase in air pressure of the lungs. There is increase in air pressure of the lungs. There is increase in air pressure of the lungs. And also, because of this increase in air pressure of the lung, there is now relaxation of the diaphragm. Relaxation of the diaphragm. So the increase in air pressure and relaxation of diaphragm works together. So there is this relaxation of diaphragm. You understand? And it causes the increase in air pressure of the lungs. So that makes DC the answer to this problem. Now, to further explain this mechanism of breathing now, as for exhalation, what happens is that the lung relaxes. You understand? In exhalation, the lung relaxes. That's what happens here. The lung relaxes in exhalation, and the chest cavity decreases. The opposite of what happens in this place. The chest cavity decreases, and the diaphragm contracts. Here, the diaphragm contracts, unlike in inhalation where the diaphragm relaxes, and there is decrease in lung pressure. There is also decrease in lung pressure. So most of these things happen in inhalation, but actually what causes the increase in pressure of the lung is due to the relaxation of the diaphragm, and that makes option C the right answer. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 8 for JAMB Past Question Biology 2018. An example of an endospermous seed is A. Cotton seed, B. Bean seed, C. Maize grain, D. Cashew nuts. Now, for us to be able to answer this correctly, we need to know what endospermous seeds are. So what seeds that possess endosperm, they are known as endospermal seeds. And they could be monocotyledons. So now, what are the endospermal seeds that we have? From the option that we have, the maize grain is an endospermal seed. There are some that are known as non-endospermal seed as well. But the endospermal seeds, the seeds that have endosperm, the one that we have in the option here is maize grain. So that makes option C the right answer for this. Like I said, there are also non-endospermal seeds. Endospermal seeds, the example that we have here, the seed that has endosperm is the maize grain. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 9 for JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. The movement of the whole organism to an external stimulus is termed A. Tropism, B. A taxis, C. Elastic movement, D. A phototropic movement. Now, we already know what phototropic movement is towards like landscape tropism, but this taxis, or what we call taxism, is very, very important for us to explain it in order for us to be able to appreciate this. So we say that taxism, or we call it tactic movement, is actually when a whole organism, when the whole of the organism, very, very important, it's not part of the organism, but when the whole of the organism moves directly towards. So whenever you have the whole part, the whole organism moving directly towards or away, it's either they're moving towards or away from a stimulus. That's what we call taxism. The stimulus comes from a particular direction and the response of the organism is in relation to the stimulus. Such movement occurs in. So where can we see taxism? Example is as we see in amoeba. These small microorganisms, when they want to respond, the whole of their body move. Unlike mammals, where parts of the body move. We also have paramecium. You can see it in paramecium. You can also see it in earth. So these are where we can see these taxism movements or tactic. So a taxis is the answer because we're talking about the movement of the whole organism. Whenever we have the movement of the whole organism in response to stimulus, we call it taxism or a tactic movement. So option A is the answer to this. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018, question number 10. If a child can receive blood from all donors, he belongs to the blood group A, O, B, A, C, B, D, AB. So does he belong to blood group O, or A, or B, or AB? Now, for us to be able to understand this and appreciate it very well, we need to understand what universal donors are. Universal donors are those people with the blood group that they can donate to everybody. So, and that is blood group O. Anybody with blood group O can actually donate to anybody. Then we also have what we call universal receivers. That is the people with blood group that can receive from anybody. And that is AB. So from there, you can see that this child can receive from all donors. He is a universal receiver. So the correct option is AB. Now, why is it like this? It is actually because group AB people possess plasma that contains neither antigen A or B. So it neither contains antibody for A or B. So because of that, the absence of this in the plasma of people with AB, they can actually receive blood from any donor. So had it been they says that this child can donate to anybody, it's a universal donor, it would have been O. But because of it can receive from everybody, then it is A. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at this question number 11 for JAMB Pass Question Biology 2018. Which of the following animals is cold-blooded? A. Cat. B. Lizard. C. Whale. D. Bird. Now, we said that cold-blooded animals or poikilothermic animals are those animals whose temperature varies according to the temperature of the environment. And we said that mostly the reptiles and amphibians are the cold-blooded animals. So as a matter of writing, we can say that cold-blooded animals, or another word for cold-blooded animals is poikilothermic animals. Poikilothermic animals are those animals whose temperature varies according to the temperature of the surrounding. So that's what we call cold-blooded animals. Animals with temperatures varying according to the temperatures of the surrounding. So the major examples of these are things like cold-blooded animals are things like lizards, snakes, crocodiles. So all these reptiles, they are cold-blooded animals, the reptiles. Then we'll also talk about animals like frogs, toads, toads and frogs. And these animals are known as amphibians. The amphibians are also cold-blooded animals. So with the examples given of cold-blooded animal, can easily pick out that the right option is B, which is lizard. Examples of cold-blooded animal. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. Question number 12. An example of radially symmetrical organism is A. Planaria, B. Hydra, C. Tapeworm, D. Roundworm. Now, in order for us to appreciate this question very well, we need to know what a radially symmetrical organism is. What does it mean for an organism to be radially symmetrical? Now, we can state that radial symmetry is actually when body of an animal. Whenever you have the body of an animal, or when the body of an animal can be cut along its axis in any plane, to give two identical halves. So whenever you can cut the body of an animal along its axis in any plane to give two identical halves, then you can see that that animal is radially symmetric. So what are the examples of animals that are radially symmetric? Examples of such animals are: number 1, hydra; number 2, jellyfish, etc. So these are the two major radially symmetrical organisms, hydra and jellyfish. So what do you say it's a radially symmetrical animal or organism? Organisms that when its body is cut along its axis in any given plane or in any plane, it can give two identical halves of such an organism. So hydra is a very good example of a radially symmetrical organism that can be seen from these two examples. So another one is also jellyfish. So the right answer for this is B, because hydra is a radially symmetrical organism. And this is because a radial symmetry is actually when the body of an animal can be cut along its axis in any plane to give two identical halves. So good examples of radially symmetrical organisms are hydra and jellyfish. That makes option B the right answer for these. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past question, Biology 2018, question number 13. Physiological adaptation to very dry conditions in animals demonstrates A. Xeromorphism, B. Hibernation, C. Estivation, D. Rejuvenation. Now, for us to be able to understand this very well, we need to note the definition of the various terms used here. So from what we have here, you can see the first term here is xeromorphism. This xeromorphism is frequently associated with the loss of leaves and their replacement with photosynthetic branches, such as cladophiles or thorns. So this has to do with loss of leaves. So this is actually associated with plants, mostly loss of leaves and their replacement. Though it is also done during dry conditions, mostly during dry conditions. Now we look at hibernation. Hibernation is actually dormancy of animal. This one has to do with animal. So it's a state of animal dormancy taking place around the winter period due to coldness. State of animal dormancy. So when we say dormancy, we mean when normal activity is not happening inside the body. There is low metabolic activity inside the body of the organism. So state of animal dormancy that happens mostly during winter, during cold conditions. So it's good we take note when this happens. Then estivation is also state of dormancy or adaptation, but this time around during hot seasons. So a state of animal dormancy, which is a form of adaptation that happens during summer or in very dry conditions for animals too. And you see that we are talking about animal here. So xenomorphism is not very close to what we are saying, though it happens in dry conditions. But this estivation is the physiological adaptation to a very dry condition in animals. Then the animals we talk about, like animals like desert rattlesnake, they have such adaptation, estivation, desert rattlesnake, and you talk about scorpions too. Scorpions. Now rejuvenation is when something is recuperating, so it's not very close to this. So the right option is option C. A also happens in dry condition, but it's mostly for plants, loss of leaf. It's a form of adaptation for them. But estivation is very close to the definition that we have here, that is physiological adaptation to a very dry condition in animal. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, biology 2018, question number 14. A group of organisms of different species living in a particular area is described as A colony, B community, C population, D niche. Now these are ecological terms, and the right definition and the option is B community, and that is because, why is community the answer? Because from the definition of community, a community is made of populations, because now you're talking about different organisms. So it's actually made up of all the populations of living organisms that exist together. This is what the population is. In a particular habitat, particular area that's organisms in a particular habitat. Now, if you want an example, for an example now, a community on a rotten log. Rotten log is a habitat, it's a particular area. This very community living on a rotten log will now consist mainly of populations of, number one, decomposers. That I'm giving you an example of a population. Example of decomposers are things like bacteria and fungi. I'm giving us an example of a community. So a community that lives in a particular area, this time around the particular area is rotten log. So it will consist of which organism? Decomposers, example, bacteria and fungi. And number two sets of organisms that you can find in such a community is insects, example, termites and ants. You know, when you go to a log of wood, you will see all these termites and ants, bacteria and fungi. And number three, you can also see lizards in a log of wood and small birds. So you can see in this community of rotten log and the particular place or habitat. We have decomposers like bacteria, fungi, insects like termites and ants, lizards and small birds. You can see different organisms of different species living in a particular area. This particular area is the rotten log. So you can see that it fits into this definition of a community. And that is why option B is the right answer for this. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 15. A pollutant that is mostly associated with the acid rain is A. Nitrogen 4 oxide, B. Ozone, C. Fluorine, D. Carbon 4 oxide. Now, whenever you hear about acid rain, your mind should always go to nitrogen 4 oxide. Ozone, you're talking about the ozone layer that is being depleted while we are having more hot weather, where we have the ice caps being turned into going down because of the heat on the earth. Fluorine doesn't really cause acid rain as nitrogen 4 oxide does. And carbon 4 oxide is what you get when you exhale or when carbon 2 oxide reacts with oxygen. But when you're talking about acid rain, you're talking about nitrogen 4 oxide. And how do you come about all this? Fossil fuels contain pollutants such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen 4 oxide. These gases are poisonous and dissolved in moist air to form acids. When they are dissolved by rainwater, they give rise to acid rain. Acid rain reduces the growth of plants and damages their leaves. It also destroys metallic structures and plants and animal life. So you can also actually see this under ecological management. So under ecological management, we can see the effect of some gases. And these gas pollutants, the major two example is sulfur, very, very important, sulfur dioxide, you need to know about it, nitrogen 4 oxide. These are the two gas pollutants that can cause acid rain. So when you have these gases come together with rainwater, when they come together with rainwater, any of these two gases, then you have what we call acid rain. So that's how you get your acid rain. When gases like sulfur dioxide or nitrogen 4 oxide reacts, comes in contact with water, we have acid rain. So this acid rain falls, causes a lot of problems, and that is why it is not good to reduce their emission. So the right answer here is nitrogen 4 oxide, because that is what causes acid rain together with sulfur. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 16. The vitamin which is important in the formation of the retinal pigment is A. Vitamin A, B. Vitamin B, C. Vitamin C, D. Vitamin D. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this very well, we need to note that the retina consists of photoreceptors called rods and cones. So these rods and cones are photoreceptors. And these photoreceptors are on the retina. Now, on these very photoreceptors, we have high sensitive pigment protein complex known as rhodopsin. So on these photoreceptors, we have pigment proton complex known as what? Rhodopsin. Very, very important. Now, the pigment part of this rhodopsin is made from vitamin A. So you actually get the pigment, this very pigment on the rhodopsin from vitamin A. And that is why lack of it, lack of this very vitamin A results or causes night blindness. So you see, that very thing that helps in forming the pigment rhodopsin is vitamin A. And that makes option A the right answer. Vitamin A is actually the vitamin which is important in the formation of retinal pigment. So the retinal pigment rhodopsin is actually consisting of a pigment protein complex, which is actually helped in its formation is vitamin A. Now this rhodopsin is on the photoreceptors known as rods and cone in the retina. So that's why option A is the right answer. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 17. The hygrometer is used for measuring A, relative humidity, B, specific gravity, C, rainfall, D, salinity. Now, the hygrometer is actually used in measuring relative humidity. That is what you use hygrometer to measure. Now, what is this relative humidity? Relative humidity is actually a measure of the amount. Relative humidity is the measure of the amount of moisture. So whenever you measure the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, then you say you're measuring relative humidity. So that is what relative humidity is. And it can be measured using hygrometer. That's what you use in measuring relative humidity. Now, it is usually high in the hot, wet weather. So you have relative humidity to be high in hot, wet weather or hot, wet regions. That's where you get your relative